Business owners, that little audio file was from Dave Levy, who was a Region 3 Director at the ASQ in 2013 when I gave a speech at the ASQ, American Society for Quality, for both the New Haven and Fairfield County branches. I did that, and we were talking, and Dave was sent there to kind of disparage me, discredit me is more like it. He came up to me after the meeting, shook my hand, he said, "Daryl, there's nothing I can do. You're a good guy, smart guy, just do what you got to do." And he said that. He said, and I will say it again, there's no restriction on you doing business unaccredited or accredited. And as I said before, ANAB has no problem with what you're doing. In fact, we support you, sir. Well, I get the slings and arrows tossed at me for many, many years about certificate mill, unaccredited, unofficial, all the rest of this happy horse bunk that's put together by people who aren't really associated with the ANSI-ANAB. But let me tell you something. You dig back this onion and you find out a lot of bad things. This video today is about U.S. government possibly compromised by, at the time, VP of ANSI-ANAB and Chairman of the IAF Incorporated in Delaware, International Accreditation Form, Randy Doughtery, 2017. You saw that Dave Levy in 2013 said, and I only had 2 years open in my business, I wanted to help companies, the smaller people, because if you look at ANSI's board, that's one of the reasons why back about a month ago, I applied to be a nominee, and I was a nominee on the ANSI board, because I felt that there's little to no, on their board itself, there's little to no small mom and pop shops being recognized. There's a lot of corporations, a lot of federal agencies, but as far as I did the analysis for years, there's nobody representing the people who are actually the backbones of Boeing, of UTC, United Technologies, of also Lockheed, and so many other corporations that sit on that board. So in 2016, Randy Doughtery, at that time, he was not the vice president anymore of ANAB or the chairman of the IAF, but he was the technical advisor for ANAB. He was the treasurer and also the principal on the IAF tax report. Going back, though, to the ASQ, and Dave Levy said, "No problem, Daryl." They owned, the American Society of Quality owned ANAB 50%. ANSI, the American National Standards Institute, owned them 50%. So I got a good pat on the back, a good start, giving me a thumbs up. To make matters even better, in 2016, Randy Doughtery sent us an email that said you can either join the IAF or ANAB or both. You can stop the video, I'm not going to read this, but he invited us. And at that time, he was the technical advisor of ANAB. He was also the principal on the IAF tax form, which the International Accreditation Form is incorporated in Delaware. Let me give you a little bit of background information on this, if I may. Business owners and my fellow associates and my citizens, ANSI, the American National Standards Institute, is a not-for-profit, and I emphasize this, it is a non-governmental entity, okay? It is. It's been around for 100 years. It has both federal agencies and corporations on board. In 2015, Randy Doughtery, the vice president of ANAB at the time, the chairman of the IAF, the International Accreditation Form Incorporated in Delaware, handed over, he was also on the principal on the IAF 990 tax form. He handed over leadership to this communist Chinese national, Xiao Jianhua, who's been involved with our quality since 1994. Do you hear that, business owners? He's been a long time, he's been snooping around. Also, he is the Chief Executive Officer of the China National Accreditation Services, which is the same organization that certified the suspect release of COVID-19 in Wuhan China laboratory biolevel 4. He is mandated by his country of origin, Communist China, to take data. ANSI and ANAB. ANSI took over complete control over ANAB. They sit on each other's board. Also, they sit on the IAF. At the time, the IAF was being watched over and controlled by Communist China. And you also, between 2015 and 2021, you also have federal agencies and corporations. You also have Xiao Jianhua. Here he is standing in the lab at that time, 2017. I have something important to show you as well coming right up. You have Xiao Jianhua. He is also the chief executive of the China National Accreditation Services in Beijing, China, and also the chairman of the International Accreditation Forum, handing over a laboratory certification for 17025 for laboratory certification, ISO 17025. The thing that disturbs me the most is about Pamela, who is an American. She was the VP of Accreditation for Laboratory. She said under deposition that there were variances in laboratory protocols. Thus, why do they issue certificates of quality when there are variances? That's what I scratched my head with. Also, this, business owners, my fellow citizens, this is very important. In 2017, you saw that's the laboratory where Xiao Jianhua stood at. Well, they were doing they were basically doing a meeting between the United States. This is the second one between the United States and China. And where did they have it? In Wuhan, China. Okay, you have Anthony Fauci, who should be hung out to dry because he was lying under deposition. I tried to get this to Rand Paul, but I don't know who he has working for him. Many of these politicians that we look up to, or well, whatever you want to say, I don't look up to them, they're like down below. Anyway, many of them have their young people working for them who don't know they're behind from page 10, okay? Don't know their tuchus from page 10. And I really mean that. I've called my representatives here in Connecticut. I rather call a brothel instead of them. Or actually calling them is like calling a brothel. I don't know. That's what my friends say. Anyway, they don't answer. But anyway, I had to put that in. I will say this as well. Anthony Fauci said he didn't know anything about gain-of-function research to Rand Paul. Well, he's a liar, and here it is. This is an actual article that came out of a Chinese technical magazine, of course converted to English. And the first bullet point on here, okay, the first bullet point right here is this workshop will focus on 5 sessions, gain-of-function research, gene editing, targeting, and delivery of novel biotechnology. And let me tell you something, it's from May 17th to 19th. They were having it in 2017. So Fauci is a liar. Also, just to let you know, business owners, NIH and CDC sit on ANSI's board, right over by Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, USDA, FDA, all of them sit together. There are over 10 different registrars in China that can offer ANAB accreditation. Cybersecurity issue? We go further. This is an article that came out of the IAF where Randy Doughtery is complimenting Xiao Jianhua for maintaining his 1994 status at being there at the second meeting of the IAF and congratulating him on taking an American company like the IAF over, the International Accreditation Forum, incorporated in Delaware, and here they are shaking hands. Here is Xi Jinping, who is mandating China National Intelligence Law, Article number 7. And here's Randy Doughtery. I am not going to read this because it's going to waste a lot of time here, but he's basically saying an IFMLA compared to a China National Accreditation Services ISO certificate is equivalent in accreditation to ANAB. So China National Accreditation Services is equivalent to ANAB, which means that Lockheed Martin can have a visit from China. Oh, I'm sorry, they already did. 2009, they got hacked by China, taking the F-35 fighter. In 2012, a division of United Technologies, Sikorsky aircraft, gets hacked by China. In 2015, Lockheed goes to buy United Technologies Sikorsky aircraft for $9 billion from what we discovered. And guess what? In a Connecticut newspaper, it states, with China's okay, Lockheed closes in on the purchase of Sikorsky aircraft. And you also have Randy over here talking about what an IFMLA is. So they basically, ANAB takes all legal responsibility. It is apparent from the verbiage that they take all legal responsibility if it is an IAF-MLA. It is an ANAB certificate, accredited, supposedly. And that's what it is. No, it's a fact. And then you have Randy talking about IAF and ILAC. They're sister organizations, which means the International Accreditation Forum incorporated in Delaware and the International Laboratory Accreditation is basically underwritten by ANSI-ANAB. An underwriter is this. An underwriter is any party that evaluates and assumes another party's risk for a fee. I got this off this website, H. Roloff Pty Limited, okay? Africa's first NDT ISO IC 17025 accredited calibration lab. It has ANAB's logo, and it says ANAB is an underwriter for the International Accreditation Forum and the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation ILAC, providing documents recognized by the government agencies from a number of participating organizations. So anything that fails, ANAB, I guess, has legal responsibility. Now this is where the rubber hits the road. When I was in New York visiting ANSI, I knew nobody was there, but I was visiting them. It's coming up very shortly after a little bit of this discussion with the Department of Homeland Security on how we as Americans are not secure, how they've been watched over by communist China between 2015 and 2021, and I'm going to show you how. And it is absolutely a deplorable thing. It is actually very sad when you look at this and you see what kind of mess, under the guise of quality, as I always say. Department of Homeland Security. Yes. You tell me if you feel safe. In 2017, a private enterprise was advertised on a government website, and I thought that was against the law. It is. It is like me, Guberman PMC, going and being advertised on the Department of Homeland Security. As you can see, that's page 1. Page 2, you see Randy Doughtery. Another faux pas is this. If you look at Randy's title, it says that he is the Vice President of Quality at ANAB. And when you wrote him at that same time, he would write back and say he is the technical advisor. Well, what was he? Technical advisor, or was he the Vice President? It appears on the DHS he was Vice President. I exposed that factor about Randy, about this whole situation, about a private enterprise being in the government. Wouldn't your business like to be advertised on a government website? Well, we exposed it. That was in September 2017. In April 2018, here's the front page. This is page 1. Looks the same, identical. Here it is in 2017. Looks identical, doesn't it? I took snapshots of all this because I knew once I exposed it, they were going to take it down. And this is page 2, okay, for 2018. This is page 2, advertising Randy in 2017. This is September. This is April of 2018. September 2017, April 2018. We dug down a little bit deeper, and we discovered that a Phil Matson, Executive Director, Office of Standards, U.S. Department of Homeland Security. ANSI and ANAB sat on the International Accreditation Forum when the Communist Chinese national Xiao Jianhua was sitting there. Who do they have on there? Who does ANSI have on their board? Was the Department of Homeland Security, and here he is. He is making $262,842 at the time, and this came off the 2018 tax form. Okay? And this is basically how many hours he may or may not work, probably less than that because his full-time job is on the DHS. This payment of $262,814 is considered a royalty payment at the time. Now they changed the verbiage. About a year or 2 years ago, they changed it because I exposed the factor about a royalty payment. I'm going to hold this up. You can read it. I really don't want to read it because I don't want to waste too much of your time. And that's it. Isn't that fantastic? While Xiao Jianhua sat on the IAF as the chairman, and Randy sat 2017 on the Department of Homeland Security. Don't you, ladies and gentlemen, remember when Randy handed over leadership to Xiao Jianhua Back in 2015, it was 2 years later that I happened to be surfing the web and I wanted to look at the Department of Homeland Security, and I discovered that Randy was on. I said, wow, I'd like to advertise on that organization. And then you have the audacity of Randy complimenting Xiao Jianhua in a 2016 article about his leadership skills, how he's been involved with quality since 1994, and that congratulations to him taking over an American company. So ANSI is a lot to be blamed for this espionage. Every one of those government agencies, every one of them that sit on ANSI data has been taken by China. Why not? Because remember what I said. He's got China National Accreditation. Actually, he's got China National Intelligence Law, Article number 7 that he has to live by. This is what happens in quality, business owners, my fellow citizen. Obfuscation. Look at this. This is a nice definition. So what I did, business owners, is back probably, I would say a month ago, I put in a 54-page document for ANSI to become a nominee, and I am, still am a nominee, even though they rejected me because of Russ Cheney was there. In the laboratory, Wuhan China, and I mentioned Pamela Sale. Pamela Sale said in a deposition in Texas, from one laboratory to another, there's variances. So what I did was I discovered A2LA, which is an accreditation body that the government uses in many ways, and other companies. There are other accreditation bodies all commingling together in ANSI, but A2LA nevertheless is on ANSI's board. And I made a video, put it out, and this girl, Ashley Morton, wrote underneath the video, said, no, A2LA and ANSI are two separate entities, two separate accreditation bodies. And I did another video. And what happened is a Russ Cheney, who I never knew before, who was a chairman, he called my phone the following day. And he left this message. Because I thought it was impropriety for A2LA and ANSI, like the federal agencies that are sitting there, okay? And what happened is, Russ Cheney called me, and this is exactly what he said.
This is Russ Cheney. Please leave a message, and I'll return your call as soon as possible. Record your...
He's the chairman of ANSI, business owners. I read every piece of document about what a member of ANSI must follow, their protocols and all the rest of the stuff. They gave me a 9-question document to answer. What are the initiatives, what can I bring to the table that will push the initiatives and other items that ANSI's goals, wishes, and hopes, push them up the ladder towards the world and also towards America, utilizing voluntary standard consensus, which that's not voluntary. Impartial, I discovered after this, they are far from impartial, because this is what happened, business owners. If you look at the bottom, you see who's the nominating chairman, but Russ Cheney. Here it is 3 years later, business owners, and Russ Cheney refused me because he is the leadership. They cannot get out of this and say, well, it was a unanimous, Daryl, that they didn't elect you because it was unanimously. Hold on a sec. He's the chairman. Do you think he's going to allow that after he said half a nut, fuck you? So let me read this to you too. This is funny. The committee appreciates your interest in serving in an ANSI leadership position and your willingness to provide us with this additional information. GP Russ Cheney, chair of the ANSI 2022 nominating committee. So business owners, one last time, I want you to hear this. And I want you to understand this. Does he say half a nut, fuck you? Because I want to show you what their lawyer said. From... So what I did in 2019, all I wanted was an apology. Instead, they tried to paste this over, thinking that I was going to go away because there was a malcontent in some place in America who called me certificate mill and all the rest of that, and even tried some legal ramifications. And on top of that, business owners, a lawyer that I spoke with about this whole case back in 2019 said this, and I quote him. I have the email. I'll gladly send it to you. He said this: from state and federal courtrooms are no more than smoke and mirrors. It's a godforsaken circus. So this is it, business owners. Take a good look at this. ANSI says half a nut, fuck you. Why? Because I read everything under the sun. When I worked in corporate America, I represented the company that I worked for. Just as Russ Cheney represents ANSI, it's like ANSI's mantra to say that to me. ANSI's representing, he's representing ANSI. ANSI says half a nut, fuck you. I send a letter to Joe Bathia. He sends it to this guy, 2019. And all of a sudden, this guy, the lawyer, Jameson Carroll of Carroll and Weiss in Atlanta, Georgia, states this. After analysis, we were unable to identify any harassing or objectionable content in the brief audio file provided. Well, you heard it, business owners. Was he right? No. On top of it, ANSI's board approves what Russ Cheney said. Their membership approves it, and so does their government approved it, because he is a representative of ANSI. Thus, when I say underneath, ANSI says, it's true. You look at their bylaws, you look at their code of ethics, and he broke that. Business owners, as you've seen with Homeland Security, deeply embedded in ANSI's functions, deeply embedded, being watched over by communist China, just like Lockheed and Boeing and all our federal agencies. They have been hacked 7 times this Sunday, and I'm going to leave it here. And I'm going to say this once again, because this is a very good poem to fit these 3 stooges. And I have to say that. Is that a professional term? Maybe in the quality sense of the word. So it is impossible to comprehend the moral mischief, if I may so express it, that mental lying has produced in our society. When a man or woman has so far corrupted and prostituted the chastity of their mind as to subscribe their professional beliefs to things they do not believe, they have prepared themselves the commission for every other crime. I will be down in Washington. That video is coming out shortly. The video before I go. 203-556-1493 or Daryl, tqrs@yahoo.com. And I do this because of integrity, honesty, and the truth. And I will not have another sling and arrow tossed at me. For what I have is a shield and a sword. What they have is, I don't know. You do it. You name it. Have a good evening, or good afternoon, or good morning.